You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Welcome to Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Ruben J.
Hello, man. How you doing?
So, Ruben, tell me a little bit about yourself, or what I guess the easiest question would be, what do you do professionally?
Well, I do this. I'm a professional broadcaster. I do a bunch of stuff on the internet, and I do stuff in professionally. In the real world, I've worked with NBC, ABC, Fox, USA Network. I've worked with the Arena Football League. I've worked with All Elite Wrestling. I've worked with Impact Wrestling. I've done a ton. So this is my professional job. I am a professional broadcaster.
Do you love doing it? I mean, you have to just be able to keep it going.
Yeah, here's the funny thing is, I got into this back in the day, just as like, you know what, I have nothing better to do. People say that I have a great voice, so why not try to get into this radio broadcasting thing? And yeah, one thing led to another, and here I am, and I love every minute of it. I love the ups and the downs. I love the interactions with listeners and other fellow podcasters, and I love hearing just stories about people. I love talking to people, and it's a great business to be in.
You know, that's cool, man, because that's my exact opinion on podcasting. That's the reason why I got into it, was just for the fun of it. But you're making a living off of it, dude. You're inspiring someone like me to try and keep on going, even though a lot of what is seen today, like creativity, is not very open anymore, I don't think.
Yeah, I think people get into it for the wrong reasons sometimes. I think they see, a Joe Rogan or like Ben Shapiro or Candace Owens, or these people who are like these prominent podcasters who are making tons of money off of their podcast, and think, oh my God, that's the key to my financial success. 5 years ago it was Herbalife, and 10 years ago it was, insert blank. There's always these things that come around, and people just go, oh, that's my key to success. But when you do something for fun because you have nothing better to do, or something that you've always been interested in doing but necessarily never thought you can make money in doing it, the first day you make $1 doing it is incredible. And that's how I felt the first time. I remember about 6 or 7 years ago, just kind of waking up one morning and opening up my bank account. I'm like, oh, look, I made there's a deposit from Google. Like, oh, that seems like a scam. And then I realized, oh, that's Google AdSense money. That's money for my website. Like, wow, they actually paid for, a couple of dinners and a couple of lunches and some drinks. Like that's incredible. That was the first time that I really saw success doing this internet broadcasting thing.
When did you decide that like you had a voice that was appealing for the listener?
I still don't think I do, but
let me just say, you sound like a young Morgan Freeman, sir.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm gonna record that statement. I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna put it into my podcast. That is the best compliment I've ever had. But I've to this day I still think I sound weird, and I always wondered to myself, am I in the business? Is the questions I ask always going to overpower the talent that I lack, because I still always see that there's a lot of, there's people who have better voices than I do, or there's people who have better followings than I do, or there's, people who are better looking than I am, or whatever the case may be. But what I always have to fall back on isn't the talent or the looks or the following, but I always ask probably the best questions. And the people who come on my podcast, I like to, know for a fact that that they think, oh, okay, this guy asks some incredible questions.
When did you fell out of the news broadcasting thing and started to do your own thing, correct?
Well, no, I've never actually really worked for an organization outside of myself. Everything I've ever produced and published online has always been owned and produced by myself.
Oh, I thought you said you worked for Fox and all these types of things.
No, I've worked with them in the respect of I was one of their go-to people as far as like, when American Idol was on Fox, Fox gave me a ton of exclusive access to, judges and contestants and stuff like that. Or they had a TV show they were debuting that needed some some publicity. They would send me one of the actors to interview or something like that. That's what I meant when I worked with Fox or ABC or USA Network, was more on that side of things. I've worked directly with them in that aspect.
Do you like the fact that, like, I mean, do you like being like kind of a voice of the people or a voice that someone would like to listen to? I mean, that's a very, very hard thing for some people to go through. A lot of people feel like in this world that social media is so popular that it gives everyone who doesn't need a voice a voice. But I feel like all voices are, I guess, meant to be heard, but some have a very true talent of being able to click with a lot of audiences.
Yeah, I think that in today's day, there's definitely, um, I guess, in a sense, an oversaturation of people who, can people can easily open up an Instagram account or a Twitter account and start spewing off nonsense. It's our jobs as individuals to weed out the people who are spewing nonsense versus the people who are actually adding to the conversation or adding information that hasn't been known before. Personally, I don't really see myself as somebody who, as much as I would love to one day be considered a thought leader or somebody who is influential in a news cycle on different topics that happen in the world. For me, much of my career has always been, let me get people to break away from the norm. Like this weekend, I mean, this has been, I don't know when this is coming out, but, just to timetable this a little bit, this is being recorded after a weekend of multiple mass shootings, and right now the news cycle is consumed with what is going on in this world, what is the right answer to this, what's going on. And at the same time, I think that there's an important need for somebody to step up and say, hey, let's take a break away from all this negativity and let's talk about this movie that just came out, or let's talk about this viral story of some proposal or something good in the world that is an alternative programming to the hard reality of what is the 24/7 news cycle of 2019.
So you're kind of noticing it too, like how I do, where news just seems like they're constantly playing into the bad things and not literally looking at the light of what the world truly has to offer.
Yeah, I think the news does too much to try to drive the conversation into a us versus them mentality, as opposed to like, there's so much good that happens on a day-to-day basis. Like, when was the last time you turned on the Channel 4 news and saw, excuse me, a story of somebody who, feeds the homeless, or somebody who, heard of this family that was struggling to buy, school supplies, and made sure that this family had brand new backpacks in school. We don't hear about that stuff.
It does get
All we hear about,
attention. It
what
doesn't get
happened?
attention. It doesn't
Yeah,
get
exactly.
attention. It's
Yeah,
all
and
it's all about the bad stuff, man, because apparently we want to know the bad, but we don't ever want to know the good. I can guarantee you I'll be much happier turning on the news if it played something good that was going on and then give me some bad stuff. First of all, throughout history, this stuff has happened. It's not like it's new stuff. It's just what's happening now. It's just, oh, this murder happened. Murder has always been a thing. It just hasn't had such a giant network to be broadcasted on, and now it has so many outlets to go out with technology. The first thing
yeah.
you turn on your phone, you get an Amber Alert about a missing child. You're like, well, is there even a point to roll out of bed in the morning?
Yeah, well, perfect example. I woke up this morning to the news of the Dayton, Ohio shooting, and just like part of me is like, oh my God, like I feel bad for these people and feel bad for their families. The other part of me is I literally just rolled out of bed, and just like that's the first thing that I see is a shooting in Dayton, Ohio, 9 people dead, 20 people injured, whatever the numbers were. But what I don't hear about is the problem that I have with the news cycle is that it's also very selective. If it doesn't fit a certain narrative for the mainstream, 24/7 news cycle, then it's not covered. What we didn't hear about is the 70 people who were murdered in Chicago, throughout the entire week, and it's like that's stuff that's just as important as this lunatic white dude who goes off at people in a Walmart in Texas or the Garlic Festival in California or in some random city in Dayton, Ohio. All these stuff is important, but why isn't the one in Chicago being covered? Why isn't the one in the middle of Los Angeles? It's a normal everyday occurrence being covered just like everything else. It's a selective thing, and then on top of that, you never hear about the good stuff that happens in the world. Like people are tired of negativity in this world just in general, but that's all we get fed is this negativity, and there's nothing positive happening that's being promoted in this world anymore, and it's a shame.
I definitely think that, like, creativity, everything, our voices are being or it's just our views in general are being sided to one giant evil corruption that's supposed to take us off the big picture of what we truly want to do in our own lives. I mean, you can read all you want about what's going on in the news and all these shootings and things, but it's going to happen everywhere. And you can't do anything as a person to change that, whether it's banning guns, doing all these types of things. You can't do anything like that. It's not going to stop people from getting guns. It's not going to stop people from going into that. You need to truly make yourself a better person and make the world a better place. Because once you do that, it causes a chain reaction onto others that are willing to do the same and, become these, we think like a hive mind. Society thinks of, how many times you get pissed off and you try and push yourself out on this or your problems out onto somebody else. We all do it. We all admit to it. I've stopped myself recently doing it. I've literally been like getting angry in traffic, honking at somebody, then trying to pass them. They go and try and drive up beside me. Next thing you know, we're parked side by side. I'm out of the car and he comes over. He goes, dude, I could have hit you. I was like, you sat there and the light it was green and it was going to red. Like I was already waiting. And it was like, you were looking down on your phone. You weren't being obvious of what was going on around you. So I thought I'd just go around you, just avoid the problem. And he was like, yeah, but this could have happened. I was like, you know what? You're right, man. You're right. That was a wrong way of me thinking of it. Now, in another scenario, if I was a different person, that would have been a fight right there. But I'm me, and I know when to correct myself and when to have a correct attitude towards things. When I talk to people, everyone always gives me the same response. I'm pretty sure you probably get it too. Why do you want to know how people think? Why do you want to know about people? Because we're all interesting, man. We all got something to tell. You're from California. I'm from Maryland. That's completely across the country from each other. We have two completely different lifestyles, two completely different backgrounds, and we still think the same a little bit when it comes to society and how voices and people are meant to be heard, and we're basically being pushed down into nothing.
Yeah, and it's funny because people think, oh, well, you're across the country, you automatically have to think differently than these people. And it's like, no, there's a certain amount of like basic human decency that we all have in life, and I think, part of that too is like we've become a society of self as opposed to a society of others, because if you think about it, I don't know how old you are. I'm
21.
Okay, you're 21, so you're a little younger than me. I'm 26, but I grew up with parents who were raised in the 30s. My mom was raised, she was born in like 30, I want to say like 37, 38, somewhere around there. And she raised us old school, like how she was raised, where it was like, hey, you see a lady coming out, with her hands full, hold the door open for her and say, have a good day. You're in a, you're sitting down at the DMV and you see an old lady standing there, offer her your seat, and now we live in a society where it's like, well, they didn't hold the door for me, so I'm not going to hold the door for them. It's like, no, what happened to us as a society that we no longer care about our common person, like, I think we forget about the power that we have as individuals to literally change the course of history. Like something as simple as saying, hey, I hope you have a good day to somebody can change their entire outlook of what they had planned for the day. You don't know if that kid, that you walked by and ignored, could have been sitting there planning on killing themselves.
Yeah, it's the Kyle Hines story. I actually, I got real fascinated with mental health and these types of things. It seems like to be kind of usually what I kind of stem on in a conversation, just not really analyzing a person, but always just kind of trying to understand them and experience like what they're kind of going through, and at the same time their thoughts. And Kyle Hines' story, the guy that jumped off, I think it was the Golden Gate Bridge, and he was like, I was on the bus, and if someone would have just said hi to me, I wouldn't have had whatever in sadness to just take that step off the bus and jump off. And nobody, he was crying on the bus, no one even stopped and said hey to him. I can guarantee you, after hearing that, my whole outlook on everything changed. I'm 21. People are going to look at me and say, you're just young. You just, you don't truly understand. It's like how the world works. I'm like, I do know how the world works. I've seen it, and I'm living in what is you can call shit. It's not fun for me. I don't like it, but I found something I enjoy and something I like to do. I do this for myself. I want to hear people's thoughts and stories. This is what keeps me going, keeps me motivated to get moving. Do I want to profit off this? No. Do I want to be able to live and just do this for the rest of my life and not have to worry? Yes. I would love to be able to sit down with people for an hour. You don't know how many times people have said, why don't you try and find a way to monetize it, make money off of it, and like charge people money? I'm not going to charge you for your story. I'm never going to do that. And this isn't something where I'm just going to have you on once and then never have you on again. I'd love to have you on again down the road. It's all a conversation. If if we vibe together, we vibe together. If we don't, then that's it. It's just, if we leave it at that. It wasn't an argument. It wasn't something that we both have to hate. We both have to regret. I don't want to piss anybody off. I don't want anybody to feel like I push them to be open on my podcast. I just want them to talk to me, like, get to know each other for an hour. We're so willing to drive home, go inside the house and shut off from everything except our phone and just go on social media and look at everything that's just going to depress us out even more. I want to go out and experience everything. I want to have those late night conversations by a bonfire with some friends. I want to be able to talk to some random guy and find out he's writing a book or a memoir or something. Like, I want to hear those things.
Yeah, and it's all important. All that stuff is super important. And I think a lot of it. I love the concept of this show of just hey, let's push record and let's just talk. That's a great thing. I have a podcast myself where the whole idea is, I want to get to know different people on different levels. But we have we have what we call it's a podcast about life, friendship, and tacos. We talk about people, we talk about whatever they have going on in their life and whatever they have to promote, their music, their book, whatever. But in the meantime, we also talk to them about stuff that inspires them. We also ask about their friendships with people, and we ask them about, what their favorite taco is, and get to know these people on like a real basis, and I think we spend a lot of time going day to day, not getting to know the person that we, that lives next door to us. Like up until 2 days ago, I had no idea that my next door neighbor works at Disneyland. And that he was more than willing and happy to invite me to go hang out with him at Disneyland one day. Like, I had no idea about that. I had no idea that my other neighbors, on the other side of me, just graduated from high school, because we don't talk to each other anymore. That day and age is gone. And it's really sad if you think about it.
Yeah, I lived next to this guy for 6 years, and I just finally the other day decided to talk to him. I was like, "Hey, man, what's up? Like, I have this thing. I don't really know what you're interested in." And he's like, "Oh, I'm a Mormon, and I bake bread for the local bar." I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, and I have stained glass in my bathroom. Want to come see it?" And at that point, I was like, "Dude, I've lived next to you for 6 years. If you were going to rate me, you would have done it by now. I'm going." And I walked in and he showed me his bathroom. Dude, it was nice, man. He had flamingo stained glass. It was he made it all by hand. I don't know how stained glass was made, but he literally, and it was this beautiful art, something you would see out of like a museum or something. I'm like, "Dude, you're good." He's like, "Yeah." He goes, "It's a fun little hobby and passion of mine." I'm like, do you have a cousin that makes birdhouses? Is this a complete like Mormon set?" And he's joking around with me, but I'm like, "It was nice to meet you, man. And by the way, what's your name?" And he's like, "Oh, my name's John." I'm like, "Oh, okay, John, I'm Robbie. It's nice to meet you." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, I'll talk to you later, Robbie." And then next thing you know, I see him now and we chat for a little bit. And it's like just getting that 5 minutes in with him. It's like, damn, I just bettered my life by finally talking to my neighbor for once, where I was just like, I had my years where I was depressed and I didn't want to go out, and I still go through those every day. I have those kind of feelings a little bit, but I overcome them because I realize there's something greater to the world, and that's people. People do suck though. People, I suck, you suck, and no offense to you. It's just, we have an aspiration to be great. And I think that's what rises above the top. Like, it's Macho Man Randy Savage saying, "The cream rises to the top." Like, literally, we have an aspiration to be great. You're proving that aspiration to be great, but there's that side of you that can choose to suck, but you ignore that. And Ruben, I power you for that, dude, because that's something I'm aspiring to do, because half the time I let that sucky side of me kind of show up where I just get like depressed and I don't really want to do anything. But then I get my ass in gear. I get myself out of bed. I say, "You know what? You can sleep another time or whatever. This also contributes to my insomnia. But like you can podcast. Next thing I know, I'm podcasting with people from the Ukraine, from Russia, from wherever. Just up, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning here, and it's freaking 4 p.m. there or something, and they're just talking to me. It's people I've met through my life working at a hotel. Like we get the students that come in, and they always give the description of me I love is you're Robbie, and I'm like, yeah, I am, and I'm glad you're not saying I'm a good or bad person. You get your own experience with me, because once you start identifying people as good, bad, oh, he was okay, that's not enough for me. I know that can't be enough for you. Just being able to talk to you right now, I know you always want someone to know you for Ruben, not for some talk show host or something like that. You want to be known as Ruben J.
Yeah, and I don't. It's easy for us to fall into like the negativity of ourselves. Just like as an example, just a couple last weekend. I went to Target to buy. I have a bad obsession with Diet Snapple, and I went and I bought like 40 of them, and I bought a couple other things as well. And the cashier totally messed up, charged me way too much money, And I went back in and I talked to the person at the cash register. And on most days, I'd be super pissed. I'd be like, really? I got to my car and I realized you messed up. I have to come all the way back in here. Doesn't this person know what they're doing? But I'm just like, you know what? Here's what happened. Can you fix it? And they weren't able to fix it right away because there were some issues. But I sat there and the lady that ended up, the manager ended up coming over to fix the problem. She's like, most people would get so upset over something like this. And she's like, I'm really glad that you took a minute and you just understood that we were having some technical issues and that we're training a new cashier and she messed up. And I looked at her and I said, you know what? I said, this normally does piss me off. I said, but for whatever reason, I decided not to be pissed off today. I decided not to be an asshole to you over a simple mistake, and she's like, well, that's nice of you. Do you want to meet my daughter? She's single. How old are you? And there's like this conversation turned into like,
hey, slide in the DMs, man.
Right. Exactly. But I made this person's day. I showed her that not all people are assholes all the time. I'm an asshole more times than I like to be sometimes. But it ended up with her being like, "Hey, you should really meet my daughter. Like, I think you guys would look good together, and I think you guys would go great together. I think you guys would get along really well." And I ended up not taking her phone number, but the point is,
hold on. If you would have just scored a relationship off a Diet Snapple purchase, I would consider you just to be a savage, because that's awesome right there, man. Holy crap!
Well, I didn't know if she was actually being serious about it, but I didn't want to be the guy to be like, yeah, sure. What's her number? Here's my number, and her be like, does this guy do this often? If I see her again, maybe I'll be like, hey, so how's your daughter? And just kind of see, where things are at. But Diet Snapple is definitely the way to get relationships, folks. Let me just tell you that, because nobody ever drinks it. And if you find somebody else who does drink it, you're golden.
Exactly, dude. Like I drink this like Walmart brand. It's like a Diet Cream soda. It's practically like a sponsor of my podcast. Every time my buddy comes on, he's always shouting it out. I'm like, you wouldn't think to try it, and then you drink it, and it's like not even soda. It doesn't have that carbonation effect. But dude, it's so good. They never have it. And I look up the Amazon reviews for this thing, and people are like, where did it go? I'm like, there's people out there like me that are open to this nectar of the gods that like. It's so delicious, dude. I don't know what it is, but like I can get pissed just as easy as the next guy if it's not in the store. I'm like, but I just choose not to act on those emotions. I think we all have that limiter or that sensor that was like, don't act on that. But a lot of us are losing what that line is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And here's the other thing too, for people who are on the other side of that, people who receive that, the cashier that could have been yelled at for messing up my Snapple, order or whatever. There's a certain level of understanding that needs to happen to be like, okay, this person went through something today that is bigger than the Snapple, or bigger than the out of stock soda, or bigger than the mispriced this on the shelf, or the messed up cheeseburger from Burger King, or whatever was the final thing that set them off. And I think we need to, as people, need to step back and say, okay, what is making this person ticked off? And sometimes we have to be life's punching bags, and just go for it, and just let somebody beat us up for 5 minutes verbally, like, all right, that person got out of their system. Maybe you stop them from road rage or something.
Dude, I experienced that today, man. I was at work, and I said one thing because at my work, at a hotel, they have we're kind of short on linen a little bit, so the housekeeper's always like freaking out because they don't have linen to finish their rooms, and like she's just going off ranting, like crying and complaining for like I don't know how long it was, like a good 30 minutes, and I'm like, relax, we're gonna get it later, we will. You're gonna get your rooms done. And then she like immediately felt like I was attacking her and started screaming at me and like calling me like stupido, stupido. And I'm the only white guy in an all like Latino or black staff. So I'm very outside of it. I know what it feels like to be a minority, which I feel like a lot of people need to experience because you need to know what it's like to be uncomfortable and then try and break that uncomfortability. Cause I'm like, the reason I started thinking, why am I uncomfortable? That's something wrong with me. And then I just got over it. I've never been a racist person. I don't judge people by color. I think the only box you should have on your test for a census should be I'm a robot or I am not a robot, because those are the only two things that really matter. I want to know if someone's real or not. And she was putting all this anger out towards me. And in my head, I was like, I could easily just snap back at her. But she's probably not happy where she's at in her life, being at her age and doing what she's doing right now. She probably had a goal and never accomplished it. I'm like, the only thing I can do is sit here, take it, ignore it, and then try and make sure if, I don't end up like that. I try my best to get somewhere in this life. The only thing I really want is to be remembered. I've always wanted to be like that, whether it was good, hopefully good, not bad. But I just want people to know, like, everyone has something out there that's interesting about them and what they're doing now. And if you feel like you're not pursuing what you want to be pursuing, you definitely should be, because it's something interesting. You being able to talk and do what you love to do, much like I dream of doing, but you're able to make a career off of it, is something amazing. And, I kind of want to dive into a little bit about your podcast with being the co-host of You're My Best Friend. Um, who are some of the types of people you've talked to that have kind of given you another way of thinking?
Well, we came back on August 5th, was our second season launch, and we talked to a girl named Angie Cahill, and she's going by Angie Kielhauer, and she's going by Angie K now. She's a musician. She was on The Voice on NBC a couple of years back. She's a friend of mine, and so we, with her, it was great because she was able to talk about her career in music, and I've talked to tons of musicians over the years. One of the people that really opened my eyes into different ways of thinking was a gentleman named Eric Bischoff. He's the former WCW president of WCW years and years ago, and now he actually works for the WWE. And he was on the podcast towards the end of season 1, and he really opened up my eyes on like the idea of success in life and what drives your success. And just because that you are one of the biggest, at one point you were one of the biggest people in professional wrestling, and then the next day you're, essentially outcasted. He really helped me and my co-host, who knew nothing about professional wrestling, really see that life isn't defined by your ultimate successes or your ultimate failures. It's defined about how you react and move forward from that, because you can have a great career. I can have a podcast that gets 1 million downloads tomorrow. But what do I do with that audience? What do I do with the people who follow the podcast? And that was probably the most eye-opening conversation that I had on the podcast in the 15 episodes that have been published, and the 16th being published on August 5th.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Do you think that, like, the way your podcast is still going, do you see it like, is this something like, I know you said this is something you want to do and something like this, but do you see it like being as a stepping stone to help others to get, because like when I messaged you, it was, you just commented on my Facebook post on this community thing and was like, yeah, I'll do it, I'm down. And like, how willing and awesome that is, that you're here to help other people and do these types of things, whether you're it doesn't matter who you are, but that's a big step for people in general, what you just were able to do by coming onto the podcast. Like, a lot of people don't see that you're interviewing people that have a story, are popular, are considered celebrities. I mean, that's got to be amazing. And also, that's what you want to do. Does that ever like shock you? Do you ever have to kind of stand back and be like, "Whoa, like, did that
Yeah,
just happen?"
yeah. I've had the privilege of interviewing some of the biggest names in pop culture, um, and also interviewing people who mean a lot to me personally. And I, oh man, a couple of years ago, I got the chance. I don't know what type of music you listen to, but if you listen to, hard rock or some metal, you might know the band Alter Bridge.
Yeah.
The lead singer of that band, Miles Kennedy, has inspired me for many years and has gotten me through the lowest and lows and the highest of highs in my life. And I never, ever, 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 ever dreamed of ever meeting the guy. Well, hold on. I dreamed of it, but never thought it would come true, of meeting the guy or having the guy on my podcast or having a conversation with him that lasted more than 2 minutes. And about 3 years ago now, he was, excuse me, I got a 15-minute interview with him on my old podcast and was able to tell him how much his music meant to me and all this crazy stuff. And I remember sitting down after the fact and looking at my friend and being like, that just happened, and like, oh my God, that just happened. I can't believe that just happened. And then a week later, meeting the guy and being able to tell him in person again how much his music meant to me, and then literally crying in his arms, about some tragedies that happened in days past that his music got me through. And that for me has always been something that stood out to me as like, that was the moment where I realized if I never ever did another interview ever again, I would be happy.
Did you realize that really just put in the tone of like that people we're just people. It doesn't matter if
Yeah.
you're a celebrity or not. Like a lot of people see celebrities and they go, "Oh, that's just because that guy does this or that guy has this and this and that and this and that." And it's like you have a chance to do exactly what they're doing. And they're just people just like you, Tom Cruise, whoever you want to do. Maybe not Tom Cruise. That guy's into some crazy devil magic things. But
Yeah.
like, if you think about anybody, my cousin used to eat dinner at Sam Elliott's house. Sam Elliott from The Ranch, that guy. And he just totally walked away from me. And I was like, "What do you mean you ate dinner at Sam Elliott's?" He's like, "Yeah, he used to babysit me all the time too." And then walked out the door. And I was like, "Why are we glossing over this? You met Sam fucking Elliott." Like,
Yeah.
and he's just like, "It's normal." He goes, "Dude, they're people just like us." Once you start looking at people, celebrities, everything, any favorite musician, you can idolize them as much as you want, but it's not something to structure your life on. And he said that, and I sat there drinking my Diet Cream soda and was like, wow, that's some true stuff, man.
Yeah.
Seriously. Like, we look at these people on television that are doing things we want to be doing. We look at these people, idolize them. Yes, that's what you should be doing too, if you want to, but don't put them as the impossible standards that you can't reach. I actually upsets me a lot of the time when I see people following fitness pages and they're constantly looking at bodybuilders and putting themselves into a depressive slump to where they're not even going to the gym because they feel like their genetics or whatever is not going to allow them to get to that point. That may be true,
Yeah.
but
Well, here's the thing. You can, for example, I listen to Ryan Seacrest. Ryan Seacrest for me is the end all be all of broadcasters right now. Okay. He's the guy with the biggest paycheck in the game, and he has probably the biggest following. I'm not going to listen to Ryan Seacrest like, oh, I'm never going to be able to, I'll never have an audience like him. No, you know what? I will have an audience like him one day. Like if I look at people who are doing something better than I am and think, oh, I'll never be as good as that person, then you're losing the fight. If you look at a bodybuilder and say, oh, I'll never have the same muscles as him, then you're putting yourself 10 feet behind already, as opposed to saying, oh, I would like to be like this one day. Let's take step one and let's eliminate the bad carbs, and step two, and let's create the plan to work out better. And step three is this, and step four is that, and step five is this. That's how you succeed in life. Not looking at people who are in a better position than you or better built body than you and say, oh man, I'll never get that, because then you never will. If you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, I will never be as good as Ryan Seacrest, you're never going to be as good as Ryan Seacrest.
Yeah. I mean, Ryan Seacrest is a handsome man. You're not going to be Ryan Seacrest. You can
Are
be
you saying
like
I'm not
Ryan
handsome?
Seacrest. No, you're beautiful, obviously, but Ryan Seacrest is like Ryan Reynolds in my book. I'm sorry. I do have a little bit of a man crush when it comes to Ryan. There's just beautiful guys out there. I'm not saying it's
Especially the named Ryan. All the Ryans seem to be really cute in Hollywood.
yeah. All right, so I'm not the only one that's not that. So I'm not gay. Okay, just make it clarify that
Hey,
to
if
be.
you are, it's okay. You know, it's cool, man. We're not here to judge you.
I hope not. But the whole aspect of like there shouldn't be such a thing as judging anymore. We shouldn't have to be like that. There's people that are good at what they do because they put in the effort to get good at what they do. And then there's the
Yeah,
people that
exactly.
are obviously gifted with success. We know some of those types. But the fact that Johnny Depp is good in Pirates of the Caribbean. So he's casted for Pirates of the Caribbean. There's probably going to be 48 more Pirates of the Caribbean considering he owns 56 houses. Like
But here's
his manager's like, why are you buying more houses? Like you don't have the money. He's like, I will shoot another movie. And it's like, but why do you need 56 of them? He goes, cuz. I said,
because
cuz
I'm Johnny Depp.
that's it. I'm like, okay. But it's the whole like aspect of you can achieve anything, truly, if you
Yeah,
truly want to put the work in.
you can literally achieve anything. I mean, if 2016 taught us anything, you can achieve anything. But the important part is to realize that half the battle is mentality. You know, there's that old quote that used to be in classrooms that used to say, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. That's a mentality that needs to come back because people forget that just because you think you can't do something doesn't mean that you can't, but you have to think you have to put yourself in the position of saying, I can do this. You know, I can start a podcast. I can get 100 downloads. I can get a first sponsor. I can do whatever that next step is.
Do you feel like I guess I would have to ask what will be your foreseeable plans with your podcast in the future?
That's a great question. We are growing the podcast very slowly. We're not trying to do too much too fast. We are my co-host Moxianne, incredible singer songwriter. She's got a bunch of stuff on her plate as it is. The foreseeable future is we're just going to continue to publish content. We are first and foremost going to always want to put on a good show every single week. That's our goal. Our partner, I own a company called MultiMediaMouth.com. It's an entertainment news commentary website platform. And our goal is just to publish content, on a regular basis. And as long as we keep the goal at that, we are doing fine. And when the time comes for us to, grow the publishing and do more than one podcast a week, that's a possibility. Going on the road and doing live shows, that's a possibility. Who knows what that is going to lead to? It really can depend on people who tune in or don't tune into the podcast to dictate whether or not this thing grows beyond, the couple hundred downloads that we get every week.
Dude, that's awesome, man. I think the fact that like you're still willing, like you want to put up content, you want to have these things over. Do you ever get times where you're just like, I don't want to do this at all right now? Like I want to do something completely different. I need a break.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think everyone gets to that point. Excuse me 1 second. Sorry, I've been pushing the mute button so that way I don't cough, so you don't have to edit as much. But yeah, I think everyone gets to that point where they just realize, man, I've been doing this for a year and a half, and the results are the same. I need to take a little break and reimagine this. I'm fortunate enough to where we schedule things in a way that allows me to have those mental breaks throughout the week. And I'm lucky enough that I love this job so much that everything that can possibly go wrong is a challenge. But I also think there's a certain level of knowing when you need a break and taking that break.
Yeah, there's definitely times I'm like, I can't do it tonight. I can't. But then I say that and I end up like scheduling one, like to the point where like my mom's like, you haven't slept in 4 days and you've been podcasting like all hours, like before you go to work. And then when you get back from work, I'm like, yeah. And she's like, are you okay? I'm like, I'm fine. I feel so energized. And she's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Because I'm getting it. I'm getting the information I want. There's so many people, so many stories to hear, so many experiences and thoughts on the world. And
Yeah.
let me tell you, there's so many people that basically everyone I've podcasts with thinks the exact same about society today. People are walking around with a mask." And she was like, "Doesn't that just hurt you though? I mean, you're also getting some personal experiences too, like some hard stuff." I'm like, "No, it doesn't hurt me because I'm so happy that person was able to open up or even able just to say that. And because that's not going to affect just someone out there, it's going to affect me and make my life better. I'm enriching myself." At one point, I was completely just, "Oh, that's not right. That's not right. That's not right. That's not right." At a very like 15, 16, that around the age where I guess that's accepted to be okay because you're not truly open to what the world has to offer. Then at one point I was like, why am I listening to what everybody else is telling me about people and why am I not experiencing it myself? I had a problem, not a problem, but I had a problem with, I guess you could say, with the UFC fighter that went from a guy to a girl, didn't address it. He was a girl and beat the crap out of women and was winning all these things. And they finally came out and then he turned out to be transgender and all this stuff. I had a problem with that. I also had a problem with people flipping their genders all around the place. So, what I decided to do? I met a transgender at my school and I asked her if she would come onto my podcast. I usually do them in person. And I sat there 2.5 hours talking to her, and she changed my
Yeah.
complete way and rational thinking on everything. And she's became one of my biggest supporters too. And
That's awesome.
I'm even saying it wrong by saying she. He's been taking male testosterone for going on 7 to 8 months now, and I love seeing how happy he is. There's people out there. You have to hear their experience. You have to hear their thoughts, and it's different for everyone. We all have a mind track thinking. We all have a process of how we got here, how we got there. I want to know it. I want to hear it because I can judge you all I want, but I'm not truly correct and I truly don't have an answer to anything, or there is never a final conclusion. But the best thing I can do is be able to see it from the other side and as much as your side as possible. And
Absolutely.
once you open up that and people are open up to that, oh dude, this world will be a hell of a lot better of a place.
Absolutely, man. Well, let me tell you this. I I am a conservative Christian. I'm the rarity in Los Angeles. I'm a conservative Christian. I will, gladly announce that I voted for Donald Trump, and a lot of people that closes the door. You know, but I will say this: about 5, 6 years ago, no longer than that, when I was in high school, so over 10 years ago now, I, wrote and said some terrible things about gay people, because I didn't know, I didn't understand. I was afraid of what being gay meant, and then I remember one day just waking up and being like, what's the big deal? Right. And then I was working in The Voice. There's this lady named Stephanie Rice. She's one of the contestants, and she shared her experience about growing up in a conservative Christian home and being gay. And I remember apologizing to her on, and I think it was privately too. I apologized to her. I said, listen, I said, I used to be one of those people who, whenever I heard that somebody was gay or whatever, would be like, oh my God, what's wrong with them? You know? And then I said, but hearing your story and hearing how that affected you as a person, I want to apologize because I didn't understand what people go through who are different than the norm that you grow up knowing what is norm, you know? And it's interesting how having a conversation with somebody who practices a lifestyle that you don't know anything about, hearing their story can just completely change your mindset about that lifestyle, and now I'm very much of the belief of like, I don't give a crap what you do in your bedroom, like, be a good person to me, I'll be a good person to you. I don't care what your sexual orientation is. I don't care what private part you decide to associate with. I don't give a shit about that stuff. Just be a good person.
Yeah, but
That's what we need.
if you eat ketchup on your eggs, you're a savage. I'm sorry. If
That's
my
true.
my dad does that, I'm like, you're disgusting, sir. And he's like, look, it's a Baltimore thing. I'm like, I don't care what it is. It's a thing from hell. But it's, I tend to use a lot of like try and crack little jokes here and there because that's just part of my personality. And even when it gets dark, like I've had people, the reason I started my podcast, my one buddy that was open about, he called me and I hadn't talked to him in 5 years from junior year in high school. And he just goes, you're a real person, man. I want you to know, like, he's opened up to me about how his life's been controlled and how he's on top of his roof, like about to jump right now. I'm like, dude, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. You're expecting me to give you wisdom and advice right now? And he's like, I know it's too much to ask. It's too much to ask from anybody. I'm like, dude, I feel you, man. I feel you. I really do, because I'm going through the same shit. I'm not on my roof right now. I'm laying in bed watching Netflix, but I feel you. I don't want to be alive anymore. And I understand what that's like. But then I started realizing everyone feels like that at times. We all have that one thought, like, damn, is this what the world really is? Especially when your life goes to shit. And it's one thing after another. And the only way you can truly I guess, address that or even get over that is to know that the problem happened, but it's not going to be around forever. There's going to be something else that's going to go down the road. Something else worse can happen down the road, but you just have to see that problem as it's right in my path right now, but it won't be in my future. And you just move on. You know, I had 2 flat tires in under a week. In under a week, I lost $1,000. Like, it just in flat hitting nails and flat tires, like
So
blowouts and stuff. You know what? I was pissed when it happened. I thought the world was literally shitting on my head. But those nights I had podcasts scheduled. I said, no, I have this that I need to get fixed so I can do this, because this is what I want. This is what brings me my joy. This is what brings me. You're telling me the story and the thoughts of Ruben J right now. That's what it is. I can't read I mean, I can read, but I
that's
don't want to
scary.
read a book for shit. You know what I mean? And you're telling me the story of Ruben J. And I want to know it. I want to see where this tale unfolds. I want to be able to talk to you 100 episodes from your podcast now, and I want to see the progress it has. I want to see your thoughts on the future, what you want to be doing in your own life. And it brings me to my next question. What do you see for your foreseeable future, not just with your podcast, but with your life? Where do you want to be?
Man, you're asking the tough questions I didn't get a chance to think about. You know, I'm very happy with where I'm at and what I'm doing in my life. Um, you know, if you ask me where I want to be in the next year, I want to be what I'm doing, just more successful at it. You know, if this time next year I doubled my subscribers on my podcast and doubled my subscribers on my YouTube channel and doubled the subscribers, you know, to our mailing list and doubled the amount of income that I have coming in from these revenue sources, I'd be a happy man. You know, and it's a matter of, you know, setting yourself a goal that's actually doable. You know, because a lot of people think, oh, in a year from now, I want to have 4 houses and I want to be a millionaire. It's like, okay, that's obviously you're setting yourself up for failure. You know, if that's a 5 or 10 year plan, okay, that might be possible.
Yeah,
So
when you set impossible standards, people think it's like a way to get them to drive even faster. No, when you set impossible standards and then you don't reach those standards, you're like, wow, I didn't even reach my first expectations or goals. There's not even a point in me continuing this any farther. No, you got to make them reasonable.
you know what's an impossible thing for me to do is drive from Los Angeles to Maryland in 24 hours.
Dude, if you drink 4 Red Bulls, I believe in you.
I'm just saying it's physically impossible. Like the amount of drive time that it would take would be physically impossible, even if I drove 200 miles an hour.
No speed limits, no seat belts, just a bowl of Frosted Flakes and some Red Bull. You are good to go.
Yeah, but the point, what I'm saying is that like that's an impossible thing. But if I say, hey, you know what, I'm gonna give myself 2 weeks to get to Maryland from Los Angeles, that gives me a chance to get there safely. Gives me a chance to stop and look at the different things on the road on my way there. You know, like you set yourself a goal that's actually doable. Like, okay, I can be probably in Texas in 2 days or in a day. Realistically, I can drive 24 hours, get to Texas and look around and try some food. And then from there, figure out what the next, what the next stopping point is supposed to be. And within 14 days, I can be in Maryland and you and I could crack open a beer at your favorite bar, hang out, and then I can jump on a plane and come home.
Can we just drink Diet Snapple instead?
Yeah, even better. Even
Seems
better.
like we would both prefer that.
Perfect. I mean, that sounds like heaven right now. But the point is, that's the same thing. Like if I say I want to be a millionaire by this time next year, well, that's setting the standard really, really high. And unless I buy and sell real estate at 10 times its value, that's probably not going to happen. You know?
Yeah. I mean, You're setting a reasonable goal by it's expending out the time that it would take you for you to get here in your scenario. If
Yeah,
you sit
exactly.
there and say, "Oh, I can be there in 20 minutes," all right, that's not possible with any time unless you found the Star Trek teleporter that you're just going to beam yourself over here, Scotty. But it's not realistic. And do you think that's a lot of downsides you see with people that are trying to make it? Is that they set unrealistic expectations?
They see unrealistic expectations. They see, for example, I have friends that start YouTube channels every day. Every day they start a different YouTube channel and they say, you know, this other YouTube channel that I watch has 1 million subscribers. Okay, cool. How long has that YouTube channel been around? 10 years. All right. So it took them a while to get to 1 million subscribers. You're not going to go from 0 subscribers to 1 million overnight, and then they get upset with themselves when they only have 20 subscribers a week into their YouTube venture.
Yeah. I've had people that go like, I'm going to keep pushing forward, keep perceiving or persevering. And I look at them and like, they'll have like the smallest following, but they've been doing it for years. And I'm like, damn, he's got something in his mind he's willing to do, even though it's not a big upbringing. And sometimes the whole social media factor is just who you get, who you plug, what you pay for. Facebook will boost your post for $15. Ah, fuck that. I am not doing that. Are you kidding me? I'd rather be able to talk to you and create my own story. And if someone wants to listen to it and come across it, whether it's now or it's 100 years from now, it doesn't matter because I've had my fun already. I got to talk to you. I got to be able to sit down and understand another human being in this world doing something I want to be doing too, but also you're able to live off that. I adore you, man. You're the freaking Brad Pitt of the broadcasting world right now. Like, I like being able to have a normal conversation with someone, even though you're not much older than me. But I've had so many people tell me, like, wow, the way you think is really different for someone your age. It's like there are people out here like us, but we're judging based on these situations what the norm is. Most kids my age are not like me. I'm glad I'm different. I'm glad I can make people think differently about me because truly we're all here experiencing this world together, and it does not take long to understand it. You're into broadcasting. That's something my family is, all into radio and all those types of things. It's not something I wanted to do. I don't like having a script. I like being able to ramble off about things. Hell, at one point I wanted to start a podcast where I was just eating Raisin Bran into the microphone. That was just a thing. Like I was like, I'd listen to it. 15 minutes, you just hear crunching in the middle of the mic. Like there's some guy out there that's gonna be like, this is fucking awesome. I swear, this dude, wait a minute. He's eating Lucky Charms now. Holy crap, he's changing it up. It's a new episode. And he's like freaking out. I'm like, there's some guy out there that would take that from that and have that
You realize
betterness in his life.
there's a whole market for that. It's called ASMR, and they're making millions of dollars, man. You should have done it.
God See, I got upset. I thought about the Raisin Bran thing when I was listening. You listen to those, I guess, what would you call them? The nighttime things that help you sleep. Like you listen to
Yeah,
the
ASMR.
nature. Yeah, but you listen to like the beach water or something like the sounds of
Oh
the
yeah.
ocean. Well, I was listening to one because I was having trouble sleeping, and about 10 minutes in, I'm like getting ready to drift off into the like nappy land. Next thing you hear is a seagull go, ah. And he did it every minute for 15 minutes straight. And all I could think of that was keeping me from sleeping was that seagull. And I was like, I want to kill that fucking bird. Because it's like, every minute. And I'm like, all you're hearing is the sounds like whoosh, like of the ocean. And you just hear that freaking bird just going ham. I'm like, where are all the seagulls at right now?
That seagull is living its life purpose.
But it's like it was living his life purpose of not letting me sleep. And I hear that and I'm like, but there's someone out there that fits for. And I think once you start realizing you're not going to appease everyone, you're not going to be happy with everyone's not going to be happy with your podcast. There's going to be people that is going to crap on it. And that's fine. But just understand you have a niche audience. And that's why a lot of podcasters, like there are very few that do what my version is. Like 3% of us do it out of 750,000. 3% only want to hear people's thoughts and just experiences and stories in life, just what's going on in your life, like that type of stuff. Everyone else has a narrowed thing, whether it's sports, whether it's action movies, whether it's the type of thing, because they're trying to handle down to a niche audience. And I always tell people, an answer you can never be able to give me, which I do get, is I don't think it's I'm fit for it. I'm like, what do you mean you're not fit for it? You have a life, right? You have thoughts, right? Okay, then. That's all it takes.
Yeah, you have a mouth. You know, you had a brain. You can do a podcast. Yeah, that's simple.
Yeah, it's it's similar to what you do. You get the more benefit of the doubt by being able, like, you host it with somebody, right?
Yeah, well, the You're My Best Friend podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, so that makes sense. That's why you have it titled that. Come on, Robbie, use your head. And it's like, but you get to do that with someone, so it brings in a whole nother relative conversation to of things that you're not going to think of. She's going to throw out. It's a she, right? Because I'm seeing a girl on the front cover. I would hoping you're not just like your buddy's just not like, I don't like how I look, so use this image of Jessica Simpson back when she was in Dukes of Hazzard.
Well,
And
either way, that it's not Jessica Simpson in the artwork, but yeah, no, she's
yeah, I know. I was just using a.
yeah.
But like, it's the whole idea. Like, she brings in another concept, another thought, another thing to add on that increases the conversation and bolsters a conversation. Because I've talked to people who want to do podcasting and don't have the voice, don't have this type of speaker muscle, I would say. That's a thing. There's a thing, a social thing. Like, if people that are able to voice stuff so good, people want to listen to it. Something you have. And, Neil deGrasse Tyson has it too when he's trying to explain cosmos. And you hear Elon Musk, he doesn't have it. Elon Musk doesn't have that speaker attitude. He has the smarts for it, but he doesn't know how to say it in a way he's going to make people understand. Neil deGrasse Tyson can explain it better. I mean, I've podcasted with people who just stutter the whole time, and you can't understand a word they're saying, and they're just here trying to plug this podcast. And I'm like, look, man, like, if you keep working at this, it's only going to get better. It's only going to increase. And I could have easily been the guy that just shit all over it and be like, you're not going to go anywhere in life. You're not going to do anything like this. But I don't see that as benefiting anybody. What? I'm just going to get a little
either. I mean, that's the last, I look at people who think that they're supposed to be the Simon Cowell of everything and they're supposed to judge people's ability. It's like, no, that's not your job. Our jobs isn't to judge other people. Our jobs are, if it's not for you, it's not for you. If my podcast about life, friendship, and tacos that drops every Monday, like my cheap plug, if that podcast isn't for you, it's not your job to say my podcast sucks. It's the job of people who, the only people that can say my podcast sucks are the people who want to put ads on my podcast.
And you don't let those advertisements in.
Well, I mean, if they think my podcast sucks, they're probably not going to actually buy on my podcast. But
hey, man, your podcast sucks. You mind if I pay you to plug my product? It's like, you just told me my podcast sucks, and you want to sell your inflatable socks on my podcast? What?
Inflatable socks.
I know, that was a weird one too.
That was a weird one.
Well, that's what happens.
You know what? You and I should go into business together on these inflatable socks.
Dude, can we do glow in the dark socks? Because I feel like those are a lot better.
Done. Let's do it. Let's trademark it now.
What would we call them? Light up the night? No, that's Skechers. Damn it.
Well, let's put a pin in this conversation on that, because that's a whole other world.
We're losing money when we put a pin in it. But I just like that, like being able to joke around with things like this and create such a vibe where someone's.
I thought we were serious.
Did you want to? I mean, I'm down. I got like a good amount in the bank. We can just freaking start selling T-shirts now.
Let's do this. If you go, let's have people donate money to us, like to pre-order these things, and if we raise $100,000, then we know it's a go. And
we get to show up in those socks and give them to you.
Absolutely.
You get to take them right off my feet. No, because then that would bring in the weird people to smell my feet. Oh God, we're diving into too many outlets with the glow and dark socks. But going back to podcasting, like it takes a lot for people to be able to talk to other people. I mean, have you ever experienced talking to someone then afterwards feeling literally physically and mentally drained?
Um, no, not mentally drained. Usually podcasts where, usually guests when it's like obvious it's a terrible interview, we'll cut it short. Um, Physically drained, yes, but that's because I used to do these things called the TSA press tours, and it would literally be from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. on a red carpet, and you're being pitched person after person after person after person after person after person. I there was one day, one of those days I did 47 interviews.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And to be honest, I didn't know 40 of the people that I interviewed. I had no idea who they were, no idea what the show was about. They all came out to be great interviews, but I had no idea who they were. And, going home, driving home that night was terrible. I mean, it was one of those things where you just had to have 15 shots of Red Bull, and a Trenta coffee from Starbucks just to get home.
Yeah, I mean, after 47 interviews, you just figure like you're like at that point you're kind of like on autopilot. You just start asking things and you don't even not really truly thinking about or listening to the person anymore. Am I right?
There's a certain level of autopilot that just happens in general. Like for me, I've been doing this so long that I can easily, even if I know nothing about you, I can easily get 20 minutes of content out of you. But that's all, that autopilot. I know what questions to ask to get you talking. But yeah, I mean, there's a certain point where you're just kind of like, all right, I don't feel like talking to anybody anymore. Let me just get this over with. Let's just get these interviews over with. Like let's move on. Let's get to the buffet afterwards so I can go home.
Yeah. Let's just get through the words so I can go home. When I hear people that are like, I want to do this, and they're sitting in bed the next, like when you go and message them later, like, why aren't you going and doing what you said you're going to do? Oh, I'll do it another day. It's like if you keep postponing things, eventually it's just not going to happen. You put too many things on hold, and it brings me to a question like, what would you offer for tips to help somebody who's podcasting like myself to be able to kind of get more of the voice out there and also be able to keep on doing what he wants to do at the same time, not have to worry about work or bills, being able to sustain himself with this?
Well, the first thing to do is always commit to a schedule that you know that you can commit to, regardless of what goes on in your life. We have a schedule here at MultiMediaMouth that allows me to be able to do everything I need to do, while also going out and having a personal life and a family life, and going out and hanging out with the friends and doing all this stuff. But at the same time, if I decide to take a vacation, that schedule still needs to be able to handle itself. So the first and foremost is always, commit to a schedule that you can commit to. If you can commit to doing an hour every night, like more power to you. But what's going to happen if in 6 months all of a sudden, half the people at your job quit and you have to do all this overtime? Like you have to be able to know that maybe doing an hour every day might be too much, but maybe doing an hour every other day is a little bit more sustainable. Then you also have time in between episodes to edit. That's first and foremost. The second thing is when you're able to, whenever you're able to either afford it or someone's willing to do it for free, you want to bring people on board who are going to be able to help you grow the brand organically and be there as somebody who can take the load off of what you're doing. If that means bringing somebody in whose job it is to literally go on Facebook and post the new link to the episodes every day, then that's an important piece of your machine that you need to have. But that's going to be up to you. And then, thirdly, having some time for you to be able to escape from the grind. A lot of my work I do out of a Starbucks because it's easy for me to get work done there. But it also gives me a chance to unwind and get out of an office environment and into an area where, hey, if I wanted to, I can stop and go talk to my barista for 5 minutes about how their day is going, or I can go outside and talk to the guy who's has the cute golden retriever and I want to go pet or whatever. So those are the tips that I have is make sure that you have a schedule that you can commit to, bring on good people onto your team, and then also make sure that you know when to pull back from the grind.
What kind of bumps in the roads would you say that you would warn people to stay away from when it comes to podcasting or just being able to kind of do a broadcasting type scenario?
Um, Planning is key. If you don't plan, you're never going to go anywhere, because if you are just going by the seat of your pants, something eventually is going to go wrong, and that might end up being not having a guest. It might be not knowing, that you have some bills that are due that are important. The other thing is, make sure you have the right podcasting platform partners. So wherever you're publishing your podcasts on, make sure that they are a stable company. Make sure that they aren't struggling financially. If you can figure that out, stay away from SoundCloud, because that's a company that's probably going to be belly up by the end of the year. And just make sure the basic skills of editing. Like, if you don't know how to edit, you have no business doing a podcast at this point in time. Go learn how to edit first. That way you don't have to rely on someone else to edit your podcast if it came down to it.
Oh my goodness. You saying that's scaring me, because I tend not to edit my podcasts.
Oh, great. Well, I mean, but if that works for you, then that works for you. But
my whole thoughts on that is, I like it. Like, I like the coughs. I like the breathing. I like that type of stuff, because it makes the conversation real. I edited my first couple. Yeah. No, like, I like the conversation being real. And what I mean by that is, I edited my first couple. I edited out the ums, the buts, the ands. But then I found it sounded so fake to me listening to it. A lot of people are like, wow, it sounded really good. But I was like, that took me 2 days, and it's only an hour and a half podcast. But I liked it when I'm able to podcast with my buddy and he spills beer or a drink on the table and goes, oh shit. And then, like, on the microphone, and I'm like, good job, buddy. Good job. I could just easily as paused it, but I love that connection, because hearing that, and if I edited it out, I would know it was there, but the audience wouldn't know it was there. And a lot of times, I feel like when you create a site of realism, at least for what I've seen with my podcast, that kind of works, is that people tend to relate to it. And I think it's all about, for me at least, being a little bit relatable to some people, because we live in a world where people are we're admiring people that are seen as gods when they're not. They're just people just like us that just found a way to, or a certain niche or certain cheat code, I guess you could say, to life that made it seem like they're so wonderful and the person that you're idolizing. But truly, they're just people just like us.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit of the opposite. I've always been a little bit more of a, clean it up, make it sound good. But you know what? Hey, more power to you. If you're somebody who wants all that stuff in and that makes you feel more authentic, then go for it. But also know where your standard's at, because if you set your standard to be polished and perfected, and you have somebody who does that for you, and they get sick, and you can't keep that up yourself, then you're going to let your audience down.
Yeah, well, if you start relying on other people to help you with your job, and like that's how your thing goes by, like, yeah, you have a co-host, but you can still do it yourself too in case you can't make it to something. You have to be able to kind of have a set date, have these types of things go on, and make sure that, like, what kind of a little bit is difficult for me based on with my podcast is, if I don't have someone that can be on that night, I don't get a podcast done. I can try to invite a friend over to be on a podcast, but like, a lot of times, like, I do these in person. I sometimes the person just doesn't answer, ends up bailing out last minute because they decided to go to a party, especially dealing with kids my age. And it's like, it creates a problem, because then I can't get content out there at points where I was waiting every 3 days to put up a podcast because it was so hard to get them. Now I'm getting them every day because I'm connecting with other podcasters on other social platforms from around the world. They're just talking to people that are interested in being on. And it's the whole idea, like, anything will grow, but you have to make sure you're not giving it a structure or a requirement or a type of standard, I guess you would say, where it needs this person as well. It needs this person as well. That I am trying to fix. But at the same time, the way my show goes, I don't want to always relate it back to the show, but it's not. It's like, you can call me a host if you want, but honestly, I'm just Robbie, and I'm here to listen to you. I'm here to, talk to things. If you ever want to ask me things, I'm open to discussion as well. I'm a person. I've experienced things, and at the same time, I have thoughts on things. I've experienced the bad and goods of life. I'll be as open as I, want to be open with. I don't ever restrict anything, even my language. A lot of people are like, you cuss a lot on your thing. I'm like, I cuss in my life. I don't tend to they knock it. I'm not going to show you someone different. Like just because my grandparents, so one of my family's members will listen and be like, this isn't the Robbie I know. I'm like, it's the Robbie you do know. I just don't go and shout random cuss words in your house when I'm over. Like that's me. I'm not going to hide me. And she goes, yeah, you talk like a normal person. I was like, that's what it is. You don't, you can't tell me my grandmom does not cuss. I was like, I guarantee you, she cusses up a storm. Hell, if I don't clean the plate when I'm eating, it's, you get something, get a slap in the back of the head or something. But it's the whole concept of like, you need to be real. And the only time it seems like we're ever able to be real anymore, and that's windows slowly closing, is when we're in our room. Like that's the only time you can truly ever be naked. I should be able to be naked as soon as I walk through the door. But I can't be because I have other people I live with. I'm pretty sure nobody in my family would be happy if I was just naked walking through the front door. But I'll go to my room and I'll do what I have to do there. But that comfortability factor and that window gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And I think as society, we need to start being socially naked. I don't mean going and showing yourself in public. I mean metaphorically, as in our
There are some
brains are.
people who wouldn't mind if they did that, though. Just FYI.
I hope some dude stopped listening right when I said metaphorically and decides to take that seriously. But I'm saying you can take that, but when you start putting clothes on your creativity and blocking up your creativity, it's not open anymore. Your creativity needs to be naked and free to truly express itself. You want to truly be able to express yourself, whether it's painting something that looks like crap, whether it's making a piece of furniture that doesn't look like a piece of furniture. You have to experience the bad and the goods to create what you need to create to inspire somebody. And I think that's amazing. And I think that's what you've done with your podcast. You've experienced things, you've talked to people, you've understand people, you've have a good way of speaking with people that has helped shape your platform into so many different things.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think there's a certain level of, I'm not going to call it nakedness because I don't want to steal your word, but vulnerability. I think that we all need to have again with individuals and people, and don't be afraid to show yourself to the world. I really think that's a great thing, a really great message to leave people with, is to be yourself and be authentic and vulnerable all at the same time.
Dude, and like I said, I appreciate you being on my podcast for real. It was awesome getting to talk with you, Ruben. I think you're an awesome person, man, and I'm really glad to know that there's someone out there that's doing what I want to be doing as a career, because it makes it possible for me to be able to do something just as easy as it was for you. And I do want to give you a couple of minutes here at the end just to be able to plug your own stuff so people can follow you and be able to get some of your wisdom.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Of course, you can find me on any social platform at the Ruben J. That's Jay. And that's my personal thing. But please take a second, follow us on Instagram at Best Friend Podcast, or go to facebook.com/The Best Friend Show. If you want to hear more about the podcast, thebestfriendshow.com is a place to do that. Also, if you are curious about some of the stuff that I write about, MultiMediaMouth.com is a place to go. We'd love to have your listenership or your viewership or your readership or all the above. And if you feel like supporting a podcast, you go to buyustacos.com and throw a couple bucks our way and help us grow our audience and business that way as well. And Robbie, I appreciate you, man. I really thank you for inviting me on the show. My podcast comes out every Mondays at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So, subscribe to us on all the major podcasting platforms, man. And I appreciate you having me on. And has it been an hour already?
I think it's been a little bit longer than an hour. Like I said, I never restrict them. I just always just kind of let people talk. Next thing you know, you're sitting for 2 or 3 hours and you just, wow, it went by. I'm like, yep. And the best part was it was just conversation.
That's great, man. Hey, and I love this concept and I hope to be back someday.
All right, man. It was good talking to you, and hope to have you on again soon.
Thanks, man. We'll talk soon.